The second apartment key slid out of Maya's purse and landed beside my coffee cup while she was searching for lip balm, and the tiny brass tag attached to it said LAKE EOLA, Unit 814. I stared at it for maybe 3 seconds before she snatched it from the kitchen counter and closed her fist around it. "What's that?" I asked. My wife smiled too quickly and said, "It's Tessa's spare. She keeps locking herself out." Then she kissed my cheek, grabbed her purse, and hurried through the front door of our Orlando house before I could ask why her coworker Tessa, who lived in Winter Park, supposedly had an apartment overlooking Lake Eola. My name is David Mercer. I was 35 years old, a commercial insurance adjuster, and I had spent 9 years married to Maya, who was 33 and worked as an interior designer for luxury vacation rentals. I noticed contradictions for a living. A damaged roof told one story from the street and another when you entered the attic. A restaurant owner called a fire accidental until the inventory records showed half the expensive equipment had disappeared a week earlier. My job was not to accuse people. It was to compare what they said with what the physical world allowed to be true. That morning, the physical world had placed a key in front of me that did not belong to Tessa. The key was only the latest thing that didn't fit. For almost a year, Maya had been working on what she called the Bellwether Project, supposedly renovating a collection of furnished apartments for executives relocating to Central Florida. The project demanded late evenings, unpredictable weekends, and occasional overnight stays when deliveries arrived before sunrise. She kept a small suitcase in her SUV because, according to her, expensive furniture could not be trusted to installers without supervision. She had also developed strange pockets of expertise that had nothing to do with design. She knew the menu at a Cuban restaurant in Thornton Park even though she claimed never to have eaten there. She once corrected me when I said the Lake Eola Farmers Market closed at 3, explaining that one particular flower seller packed up at 2:30. When I asked how she knew, she said she had read it online. She began using a citrus-scented laundry detergent I didn't buy, and sometimes her clothes came home already washed. There were emotional changes too, quieter than lipstick on a collar but harder to explain away. Maya could sit across from me at dinner with tears gathering in her eyes, then insist she was simply tired. She started asking questions that sounded hypothetical but carried the weight of decisions already made. "Do you think people can love 2 lives at once?" she asked one night while we watched rain crawl down the patio doors. Another time, she said, "If someone stayed because they didn't want to hurt you, would that make the staying dishonest?" I told her that depended on what they were hiding. She went silent and changed the subject. "I want you to hold that detail for a moment. People imagine a double life as a glamorous performance requiring perfect lies. It usually survives through smaller acts of cowardice. One person notices something. The other offers a weak explanation. And love persuades the first person to accept an answer that basic logic would reject. I accepted too many of Maya's answers because the alternative would have required me to question 9 years of marriage. After the key appeared, I called Tessa from my car. I kept my voice casual and said Maya had accidentally taken something belonging to her, so I wanted to confirm where to return it. Tessa paused for half a beat, then said, "My place in Winter Park?" "Right," I replied. "You haven't moved downtown?" "No." "Why?" "No reason." I must have misunderstood. Tessa's voice changed. "David, is everything okay?" "Of course." It was the same lie Maya had been giving me, and I hated how natural it sounded. I drove to work near Maitland and spent the morning reviewing storm damage estimates without absorbing a single number. At lunch, I searched Orange County property records for Unit 814 in the building named on the key tag. The apartment belonged to a limited liability company, but rental listings showed it had been leased 18 months earlier. I searched Maya's email only through the shared family tablet, an account she had voluntarily connected years before. There was nothing obvious. No lease. No romantic messages. No receipt bearing the apartment number. Then I checked our shared cloud photographs. Maya was meticulous about deleting personal images from her phone, but the tablet still cached thumbnails from an old synchronized folder. Most were ordinary: fabric samples, kitchens under renovation, tile patterns, pictures of our dog, Baxter. Buried among them was an image of Maya standing on a balcony at night with downtown Orlando behind her. A man's hand rested on her waist. His face was outside the frame, but he wore a silver watch with a distinctive blue dial. The photograph had been taken 14 months earlier. On the balcony railing sat 2 champagne glasses and a child's plastic cup shaped like a cartoon alligator. I enlarged the reflection in the glass door. Behind Maya, inside the apartment, I could make out a narrow dining table, framed artwork, and 3 people. One was the man taking the photograph. One appeared to be a young girl. The third was me, or at least a framed photograph of me and Maya from our anniversary trip to Savannah, displayed on a shelf inside an apartment I had never entered. That image unsettled me more than if she had simply cropped me out of her life. Somebody had placed my face inside the secret one. I finished work early and drove downtown. Lake Eola shimmered beneath the late afternoon sun, crowded with joggers, tourists, and white swan boats, moving slowly across the water. The apartment building had a glass lobby and controlled elevator access. I sat in my car across the street, and told myself I was only verifying the address. At 5:43, Maya's white SUV entered the underground garage. She had texted me 20 minutes earlier saying a client meeting near Disney Springs would run late. I photographed the message and the garage entrance. Then I waited. At 6:12, a dark-haired man in navy scrubs approached the building with a girl who looked about 7 years old. The child carried a purple backpack and held his hand. A silver watch with a blue dial flashed beneath his cuff. The doorman greeted him without asking for identification. Before they went inside, the girl pointed toward a flower seller packing buckets into a van. The man bought a small bundle of yellow daisies and handed them to her. She hugged him. I remember that because tenderness can make betrayal harder to understand. He did not look like a reckless stranger sneaking into somebody else's marriage. He looked like a tired father bringing his daughter home. I stayed in the car until my shirt stuck to my back. At 7:15, Maya sent another message. Still dealing with the client. Don't wait for dinner. Love you. I could see lights glowing on the 8th floor balconies. I found Unit 814 by counting windows from the corner. Through the glass railing, I saw Maya step outside holding a wineglass. The man joined her. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and he kissed her hair with the automatic familiarity of someone who had done it hundreds of times. This was not an affair built from hotel rooms and hurried exits. They had a home. The question was how much of a life existed inside it. I called a private investigator named Lena Ortiz, whom I knew professionally from questionable property claims. I had referred insurers to her 3 times because she was discreet, relentless, and careful about legal boundaries. When she answered, I said, "I need you to investigate my wife." Lena didn't offer sympathy. She asked whether there was immediate danger, whether children lived in our house, and whether I wanted evidence for personal certainty or legal proceedings. "Both," I said. "Then don't go upstairs," she replied. "Photograph what you can see from a public location, save every communication, and go home before emotion makes a decision for you." I drove back to our house in Baldwin Park with both hands locked around the steering wheel. Baxter met me at the door, tail striking the wall. His excitement nearly broke me. I fed him, cooked pasta, and set aside a plate for Maya because I needed the house to look exactly as she expected. She returned shortly after 10 wearing different earrings from the ones she had left in. Her hair smelled faintly of the citrus detergent. "You didn't have to save me dinner," she said. "How was the client?" I asked. "Exhausting. The husband wants modern minimalism, the wife wants coastal farmhouse, and neither understands that those are completely different languages." She opened the refrigerator, saw the plate, and smiled at me with genuine warmth. That was the first moment I understood the emotional danger of a double life. Maya was not always acting. Some part of her still loved our routines, our house, Baxter sleeping beneath the kitchen table, and me remembering to keep sauce separate because she hated reheated cream. Another part of her had gone home to a man and child in an apartment downtown. Her affection for me did not make the betrayal less real. It made the betrayal more complete. She sat beside me and ate while describing fictional clients. I watched her improvise details: the imaginary husband's obsession with concrete countertops, the wife's argument about wicker chairs, and realized she had practiced lying until creativity became camouflage. When she finished, she touched my arm and said, "You're quiet. Long day. Anything bad?" "Not yet." She searched my face, then kissed me slowly. I almost pulled away. Instead, I let the kiss end naturally and told her I was going to shower. Inside the bathroom, I turned on the water and leaned both hands against the sink until the nausea passed. If you have ever loved someone while discovering that they have made you a supporting character in a life you didn't know existed, then you understand why rage wasn't the only feeling. There was grief, humiliation, curiosity, and an almost desperate wish that some missing fact could rearrange everything into innocence. But innocence does not require 18 months of rent and 2 sets of earrings. Lena began the next morning. Within 72 hours, she identified the man as Adrian Cole, 38, an emergency room nurse at Orlando Regional Medical Center. He had been legally divorced for 3 years and shared custody of his 7-year-old daughter, Sophie. His former wife lived in Claremont. He had no obvious criminal history, no major debt, and no professional connection to Maya's design work. The Lake Eola lease listed Adrian as the primary tenant and Maya Hart as an authorized occupant. Hart was Maya's maiden name. Utility records associated her private business email with the apartment. Building staff knew her as Adrian's fiancé. Fiancé. I read that word until it lost its shape. Lena obtained photographs of Maya taking Sophie to school, buying groceries with Adrian, attending a pediatric dental appointment, and entering the apartment on nights she told me she was supervising installations. A public social media account belonging to Adrian's sister showed Maya at Thanksgiving dinner the previous year, seated beside Adrian with Sophie on her lap. The caption read, "So grateful Adrian finally found the right woman." That Thanksgiving, Maya had told me her mother was experiencing migraines and needed help preparing dinner in Tampa. I had stayed in Orlando because Baxter was recovering from surgery. Maya called me twice from a guest bathroom in Adrian's sister's house and said she wished I were with her. Lena found more. Maya and Adrian had toured houses together in Winter Garden. They had met with a private school admissions coordinator for Sophie. Maya had presented herself to at least 2 people as a divorced interior designer whose ex-husband lived in Georgia. The relationship was not 14 months old. It was nearly 4 years old. She had met Adrian at a hotel renovation project when we had been married for 5 years. For 4 years, my wife had been building a second relationship with a man who believed I was an unpleasant chapter she had already closed. Maya had not merely found time for an affair. She had divided holidays, invented business trips, created separate social circles, and allowed a child to trust her. The love triangle was real in the ugliest possible way because her feelings appeared real too. In messages Lena legally obtained from public posts and later through my attorney's discovery requests, Maya told Adrian she loved him. She also came home and told me the same thing. She maintained photographs of both lives. She kept my anniversary picture in their apartment, and a hidden photograph of Adrian and Sophie inside a design portfolio in our home office. I wasn't looking at a woman choosing between love and convenience. I was looking at someone who believed she was entitled to preserve both. My divorce attorney, Samuel Green, advised me not to contact Adrian yet. "Your wife has had 4 years to control what each of you believes," he said. "If you approach him emotionally, she'll tell him you're dangerous. If you approach him with evidence and a purpose, the relationship itself may become the strongest witness against her." That sentence gave shape to my revenge. I didn't want Adrian's job, money, or public humiliation. I wanted Maya's new relationship to turn toward her and see what I had seen. We prepared carefully. Samuel filed nothing immediately. Lena built a dated timeline comparing Maya's location, messages, expenditures, and claims to be traveling for work. I copied tax returns, property records, insurance policies, and proof that Maya had used marital income to fund furnishings and vacations for the Lake Eola apartment. We discovered $52,700 in charges spread across personal credit cards and a design business account over 4 years. Some expenses were disguised as client staging, a sectional sofa, a child's bedroom set, balcony furniture, and the dining table visible in the reflection of that first photograph. Maya had billed several items as business deductions even though they remained in Adrian's home. Samuel brought in a forensic accountant because the potential tax and marital asset consequences extended beyond infidelity. Meanwhile, I wore the same mask Maya had relied on for years. I made coffee. I asked about projects. I listened as she invented delays and difficult clients. She grew more affectionate, perhaps sensing a distance she couldn't identify. One Saturday morning, she curled beside me on the sofa and asked whether I remembered our first apartment, where the air conditioner leaked into a cooking pot all summer. I remember, I said. We were happy there. She rested her head against my chest. We're still happy, aren't we? That question contained genuine fear. For 1 weak second, I considered giving her a chance to confess. Then her phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen and smiled before turning it face down. Tessa, she said. Work drama. 20 minutes later, Maya told me she needed to meet a supplier. She kissed me goodbye and drove directly to Adrian's apartment, where the three of them left wearing matching Orlando City soccer jerseys. Lena photographed Sophie walking between Maya and Adrian, holding one of their hands in each of hers. That image cured my hesitation. Maya wasn't protecting two loves from pain. She was allowing the pain to accumulate in 3 people while she controlled when it would detonate. The following Wednesday, Adrian finished his hospital shift at 7 in the morning. Lena confirmed he usually stopped at a 24-hour diner on Orange Avenue before going home. I arrived first and chose a booth near the back. At 7:23, Adrian entered wearing navy scrubs and looking exhausted. He ordered coffee at the counter. I waited until he sat down, then carried a sealed folder to his table. Adrian Cole? He looked up cautiously. Yes? My name is David Mercer. No recognition. Okay. I placed a photograph on the table. It showed Maya and me standing in front of our Christmas tree 3 months earlier. Her left hand rested on my chest, wedding ring visible. I'm Maya's husband, I said. Adrian stared at the picture, then at me. The diner seemed to contract around us. His face lost color so quickly that the waitress stopped pouring coffee and asked whether he was feeling all right. He didn't answer her. He looked back at the photograph and whispered, She said you were her abusive ex. I sat across from him and replied, She told me you were a client. Adrian's hand closed around the edge of the table. No. We've been married 9 years. We shared a bed last night. She is still on my health insurance, still owns half our house, and still tells my family we're trying to have a child. He pushed the photograph away as though it might burn him. She lives with me. Part-time. We're engaged. So are we, according to every legal record that matters. I opened the folder. Inside were our marriage certificate, recent photographs, shared mortgage statements, a timeline of Maya's lies, and copies of messages she had sent me while staying with him. Adrian read the first page. Then the second. His breathing grew shallow. When he reached the photograph of Maya asleep beside me on our anniversary weekend, taken only 6 days before she attended Sophie's school recital, he stood so abruptly that the table shook. I need to call her. You can't, I said. But if you warn her now, she'll erase evidence and tell each of us whatever keeps us separated. He stared at me with fury, but the fury was no longer directed only at me. What do you want? The truth. All of it. Adrian looked down at the folder, and something hard settled behind his eyes. Then you should know, he said. Maya and I are supposed to get married in 12 days. For a few seconds, the only sound between us was the scrape of silverware from the kitchen and a television above the counter reporting traffic delays on Interstate 4. Adrian remained standing, both hands pressed against the table, while I tried to understand how my wife could be 12 days away from marrying another man without first bothering to divorce me. Where? I asked. A private venue in Winter Park, he said. 38 guests. My sister planned most of it. Does the venue know she's legally married? They think the paperwork is already complete. Adrian sat down again and opened the folder with more care this time. He studied the marriage certificate, then the statement showing Maya had paid for furniture in his apartment through her design company. She told me you signed the divorce agreement 2 years ago, he said. She said the court was delayed because you kept contesting the house. There has never been a divorce filing. She showed me documents. Do you still have them? Adrian unlocked his phone and searched through an email account. He found a PDF Maya had sent him 18 months earlier. The first page looked like a petition for dissolution of marriage filed in Orange County. My name appeared beside a signature that resembled mine, but the case number belonged to an unrelated divorce involving 2 people I had never heard of. Maya had copied the public docket number, changed the names inside the document, and sent Adrian a counterfeit filing. I photographed the email header and forwarded the file to Samuel with Adrian's permission. Adrian read my message to my attorney twice, then asked, "Are you trying to get her arrested?" "I'm trying to stop her from deciding what happens to everyone else." "That isn't an answer. Because it isn't my decision. If she forged court documents or financial records, the people responsible for enforcing those laws will decide what it means." He leaned back and looked through the diner window at the morning traffic. His anger had cooled into something more complicated. "Sophie calls her mom sometimes," he said. "Maya told her not to, but not very hard. I didn't know what to say to that. Betrayal between adults was one thing. A 7-year-old had been taught to build a future around someone whose entire identity inside that home was fabricated. "Does Sophie know about the wedding?" I asked. "She's supposed to carry the rings." Adrian covered his mouth with one hand. "Jesus Christ." I gave him time. The waitress refilled our cups without asking, glanced at the papers, and retreated. After several minutes, Adrian said, "I need to tell you something before we go any further." His expression changed. It wasn't guilt about my marriage. It was the look of a man preparing to expose something shameful about himself. "I didn't meet Maya by accident," he said. I stopped moving. "What does that mean?" "My ex-wife, Rachel, hired her company to redesign 2 furnished rentals after our divorce. Maya handled the project. I knew she was married when I first saw her. You just told me she said I was her ex. That came later." My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. "Start over." Adrian looked at the tabletop. 4 years earlier, during the hotel renovation where he and Maya supposedly met, Adrian had recognized her from Rachel's project files. Rachel had received both vacation properties in their divorce, while Adrian was left with medical debt and an apartment he could barely furnish. He contacted Maya claiming he needed design advice. She mentioned being married during their first conversation. Adrian continued flirting anyway. At first, he said, it was resentment, an immature attempt to prove he could still attract a woman who seemed successful and unavailable after his own marriage had failed. Maya responded more quickly than he expected. Within 6 weeks, they were sleeping together. "So you knew about me?" "At the beginning, yes." "How long?" "Almost a year." I stood and walked toward the restroom because if I remained within reach of him, restraint might become impossible. I splashed cold water onto my face and stared into the mirror. Adrian had not entered this situation as an innocent man. He had knowingly helped Maya betray me, then allowed her to recast me as abusive once their affair became a domestic relationship. When I returned, he had not left. "Why should I believe anything you say?" I asked. "You shouldn't. Verify it." "That sounds convenient." "It's the only honest answer I have." Adrian said that after the first year, Maya began telling him our divorce was underway. He chose to believe it because believing allowed him to stop viewing himself as the other man. She helped furnish his apartment, became attached to Sophie, and gradually spent more nights with them. The lie grew into a household. And now you're marrying her. That was the plan. Because you love her? He didn't answer. You've had 4 years, I said. That shouldn't be difficult. Adrian stared through the window again. I care about what she does for Sophie. That wasn't my question. She makes our life work. Still not the question. His jaw tightened. I don't know. I took the folder from the table. Then figure it out without my help. Adrian caught the edge before I could close it. Wait. You came here because you need evidence. I came because I thought you were another victim. I can still give you evidence. And what do you want in exchange? I want Sophie protected from whatever happens next. There it was, the only request I believed. Samuel later told me I was right to leave before making any agreement. Adrian was both a participant and a witness, and his interests overlapped with mine only temporarily. We met that afternoon in Samuel's office, where Adrian brought his own attorney, a cautious man named Marcus Bell. The meeting lasted nearly 3 hours. Adrian provided 4 years of messages, photographs, travel receipts, copies of the fake divorce papers, and access to a shared wedding planning account. Maya had told him I was emotionally abusive, financially controlling, and intermittently violent. She claimed I had threatened to harm myself if she left. None of it was true. She had used those claims to explain why she could not post photographs of Adrian publicly, why he could not visit her design studio unannounced, and why the divorce supposedly required secrecy. Adrian admitted he had stopped asking questions because the arrangement benefited him. Maya contributed an average of $1,100 a month to his household, watched Sophie when his hospital shifts changed, planned family events, and transformed his apartment into the kind of home he could not create alone. Samuel asked, "Did you intend to enter a legal marriage with Ms. Hart while knowing she might still be married?" Adrian answered, "No. I believed the documents. After learning otherwise this morning, do you still intend to participate in the ceremony?" Adrian looked at me before replying, "Not as she expects." That became the beginning of the plan, though Samuel established firm boundaries. We would not forge anything, threaten anyone, entrap Maya into committing a new crime, or publicly distribute private sexual material. Adrian could continue communicating normally while preserving evidence. I would file for divorce and seek emergency financial restraints only after we identified whether Maya planned to move money, leave the country, or commit additional fraud around the ceremony. Adrian's attorney would notify the venue confidentially that no legal marriage license could be issued. Sophie would be removed from the event before any confrontation. Most importantly, Adrian could withdraw at any time. "This is not theater," Samuel warned us. "The goal is to prevent further harm and preserve admissible evidence. If either of you wants spectacle, I'm done." Adrian nodded. I did too, though if I'm being honest, part of me wanted Maya to experience one uninterrupted minute in which every person she had deceived stood together and refused to accept a new explanation. Adrian returned home that afternoon. Maya arrived at the Lake Eola apartment at 6 carrying fabric swatches and a bakery box. Adrian placed his phone face up on the kitchen counter and recorded their conversation under Florida law, following advice from his attorney about a conversation to which he was a party. He didn't accuse her. He told her the wedding venue needed a certified copy of her final divorce judgment. Maya said she had already submitted it. Adrian replied that the coordinator couldn't find it. She became irritated and claimed her lawyer had mishandled the upload. "Then send it again," Adrian said. "I need the official copy with the judge's signature." Maya went quiet. "Why are you suddenly worried about paperwork?" "Because we're getting married in 12 days. We're having a ceremony. The legal filing can happen later." "That isn't what you told me. Does it matter?" "Yes." Maya lowered her voice. "Adrian, we've waited 4 years. I'm not letting David sabotage this by dragging out a technicality. I thought the divorce was final. Emotionally, it is. Legally? Almost. Adrian waited. Silence drew more from her than accusation would have. Finally, she said, "There's one final signature issue with the house." "So the judgment you sent me was fake?" "Not fake. Preliminary. It said final judgment." "Why are you interrogating me?" Her chair scraped across the floor. "Did David contact you?" Adrian told us later that Maya's face changed before she even finished my name. For 4 years, she had maintained control by keeping us apart. The mere possibility that we had spoken frightened her more than any missing document. Adrian replied, "Why would David contact me? According to you, he lives in Georgia." Maya studied him for several seconds. Then her voice softened. "I'm stressed. I'm sorry." She moved closer and began the same sequence I had experienced whenever I questioned her: touch, vulnerability, reassurance, redirection. She told Adrian she loved him. She said the ceremony represented the life they had fought to build. She reminded him that Sophie had already chosen a dress. "You trust me, don't you?" she asked. Adrian answered, "I want to." That night, Maya returned to our house shortly before midnight and climbed into bed beside me. I pretended to be asleep. She lay motionless for perhaps 10 minutes, then touched my shoulder. "David?" I opened my eyes. "What's wrong?" "I had a weird dream." "About what?" "You found someone else." The audacity was so complete that I almost admired it. "How did that make you feel?" I asked. "Terrified." "Why?" She moved closer, pressing her forehead against my chest. "Because I love you." Her tears were real. I felt them soak through my shirt. That was the part nobody had prepared me for. Maya's double life was not sustained by an absence of feeling. She was terrified of losing me because some part of her genuinely loved me. She was terrified of losing Adrian because she believed she loved him too. She wanted our house, our history, my steadiness, Adrian's intensity, Sophie's dependence, and the version of herself reflected in each life. She mistook the sincerity of her emotions for permission to deceive everyone affected by them. I put one arm around her because pulling away would have revealed too much. She whispered, "Promise you won't disappear." "I won't disappear without telling you," I said. It was the closest I could come to comfort without lying. The next morning, she left before 7 and forgot the key to the Lake Eola apartment on her nightstand. I photographed it beside our wedding portrait. Then I called Samuel and authorized him to file. The petition alleged an irretrievably broken marriage and requested temporary restrictions based on the movement and concealment of marital assets. We attached financial records, not intimate photographs. Samuel arranged service for the morning after the planned ceremony because we still needed to understand why Maya was rushing to stage a wedding without a license. The answer emerged from her messages with Adrian 2 days later. Maya told him she had been offered a design partnership in Atlanta, a lie either of us had heard before. She wanted him to sell certain investments, terminate the Lake Eola lease, and place the proceeds into a joint account she planned to open after the ceremony. She also encouraged him to authorize her as an emergency guardian for Sophie because their marriage paperwork might take time. Adrian forwarded everything to Marcus and refused without making the refusal obvious. Maya was not merely trying to preserve both lives anymore. She was preparing to extract herself from mine and bind herself financially and emotionally to Adrian before he learned the truth. The ceremony would make his family witnesses to a commitment she could use as pressure even if it had no legal force. Samuel adjusted the plan. We could not allow another 12 days of potential asset movement. The reckoning would happen at the rehearsal dinner instead. The rehearsal was scheduled at an upscale restaurant in Winter Park overlooking a garden strung with white lights. Adrian's sister had reserved a private room for 20 people. Sophie would spend that evening with Rachel, who had been told only that serious legal information required the child to miss the dinner. Adrian told Maya that the venue needed one final identity document, and asked her to bring everything related to her divorce. She agreed, though her messages became increasingly affectionate and anxious. Meanwhile, I moved essential belongings and Baxter into a short-term rental. I documented every object left in our house. I changed no locks and removed no shared property beyond personal necessities. Maya noticed the empty space in my closet on Friday morning. "Are you traveling?" she asked. "Work assignment," I replied. "How long?" "I'm not sure." She watched me carefully. "Where?" "Near downtown." Her face tightened. "Which client?" I tied my shoes and said, "One with 2 addresses." The room became completely silent. Maya looked at me as though a trapdoor had opened beneath the carpet. "What does that mean?" "You tell me." Her phone began ringing inside her purse. Adrian's name flashed across the screen before she snatched it away. Neither of us moved. "Answer him," I said. "He's your client, isn't he?" Maya's lips parted. No explanation arrived. I picked up my overnight bag and walked toward the front door. She grabbed my arm. "David, wait. I can explain." "I know." I removed her hand gently. "You'll get your chance tonight." She stared at me. "Tonight?" "At your rehearsal dinner." The color vanished from her face. I stepped outside before she could recover, placed my bag in the car, and drove away while my phone filled with calls. For the first time in 4 years, Maya could reach both men she claimed to love, and neither of us would tell her what was waiting. If you're wondering whether I felt powerful, I didn't. I felt like I had finally opened a sealed room inside my own life and discovered there was no air in it. But restraint was no longer about protecting evidence. It was about making sure Maya entered that restaurant carrying every lie herself. At 6:30 that evening, she arrived in a dark green dress with the counterfeit divorce judgment inside a white leather folder. Adrian waited near the windows in a tailored gray suit. His parents, sister, closest friends, and several hospital colleagues were already seated. Maya looked around for Sophie, then asked, "Where is she?" Adrian answered, "Somewhere she doesn't have to watch this." Maya froze. The private room doors opened behind her. Samuel entered first, carrying the genuine court filings. I followed him. Maya turned toward me, and the white folder slipped from her hands onto the floor. Adrian looked at the woman he had planned to marry and said, "Before you explain why your husband is here, I need everyone in this room to hear what I should have admitted years ago." Maya looked from Adrian to me, then toward the relatives and friends seated around the private room, as if one of us might still offer her an exit. Nobody moved. The restaurant's garden lights glowed beyond the windows, soft and golden, completely wrong for what was happening inside. Adrian bent down, picked up the white leather folder, and placed it on the table without opening it. "I knew Maya was married when our relationship began," he said. His mother closed her eyes. His sister whispered, "Adrian, what are you saying?" He faced them rather than Maya. "I told myself it didn't matter because she said the marriage was ending. Later, she sent me documents showing it was over. Those documents were false. David and Maya are still legally married." Maya stepped toward him. "You don't understand what he's doing." "I understand exactly what he's doing. He showed me the real records. He manipulated them. Marriage certificates aren't opinions, Maya." Her face hardened. "So you two planned this together?" Samuel answered before either of us could. Mr. Cole provided information through independent counsel. Mr. Mercer filed for divorce based on documented financial and marital facts. Nobody forced you to bring counterfeit court papers into this room. Maya glanced at the folder. Her confidence flickered, but she still tried to regain control. "Those aren't counterfeit. My attorney prepared them." "Name the attorney," Adrian said. "This isn't the place. You chose this place. You invited my family here to celebrate a marriage you legally couldn't enter." Maya lowered her voice. "Can we speak privately?" "No." That one word seemed to frighten her more than everything else. Privacy had been her workshop. She needed separate rooms, separate explanations, and separate versions of herself. In a room where both lives could hear the same answer, she had no tools left. Let me pause here, because I had imagined this confrontation many times during the previous week. In some versions, I delivered a perfect speech. In others, Maya confessed immediately and everyone finally saw what she had done. Reality was less satisfying and more revealing. She did not surrender to the truth. She searched for the weakest person in the room and tried to make that person doubt it. She turned to Adrian's mother and said, "Linda, you know how much I love your family. You've seen me with Sophie. Do you really believe I would risk all of that for a lie?" Linda's expression changed from shock to disgust. "You brought that child into a lie." Maya flinched. Then she looked at Adrian's sister. "Claire, please. You know me." Claire shook her head. "Apparently, none of us do." Maya finally turned to me. Her eyes filled with tears. "David, tell them our marriage was already over." "When?" I asked. "For years." "What did you give me for our anniversary 6 weeks ago?" She stared at me. "What does that have to do with anything? You booked us a weekend at a resort, wrote that you wanted another 9 years with me, and told my parents we were considering fertility treatment. Was the marriage over before or after that?" Murmurs moved around the table. Maya's tears began falling. I was confused. "For 4 years? I loved you. I believe you." That answer silenced her. "I also believe you loved what Adrian's home gave you," I continued. "That doesn't make this less deliberate. Feelings don't turn forged documents into real ones." Maya pressed both palms against the table. "I never wanted anyone hurt." Adrian laughed once, without humor. "You arranged everything so you would never have to watch the hurting. That isn't the same thing." Maya moved closer to him. "I chose you." "No, you didn't. David discovered you before you were forced to choose." "I was leaving him." "Then why were you still planning a child with him?" "Because I was scared." "Why did you need access to my investments after the ceremony?" "For our future." "Why did you need guardianship paperwork for Sophie before telling me you were still married?" "Because I am her mother in every way that matters." Adrian's face changed. "You are not her mother." Maya recoiled as though he had struck her. "Don't say that. Rachel is her mother. You were someone Sophie trusted, and you used that trust to make yourself harder for me to leave." "That's not true." "Then explain why you encouraged her to call you mom while telling David you wanted a baby with him." Maya looked at me. "I didn't rescue her." Adrian removed a small velvet ring box from his jacket and placed it beside the false divorce documents. "There's something else you need to hear," he said. "No," Maya whispered. "Don't do this because you're angry." "I'm not doing it because I'm angry. I'm doing it because I should have told the truth years ago." He inhaled slowly. "I never loved you." Maya stared at him. "Stop. I cared about the apartment you helped create. I cared about having someone available when my shifts changed. I cared that Sophie was happy. I liked how you made my life look settled. But I never loved you. You proposed to me because Sophie asked whether you were staying, and because marrying you seemed easier than dismantling the life we had built. You said I saved you. You made things convenient. I let convenience become a relationship." Her voice cracked. "For years, Adrian. I know. You held me every night. And you went home to your husband afterward. Because I was trying to protect him." I almost responded, but Adrian did first. "No. You were protecting your access to him." Maya grabbed the ring box and threw it across the room. It struck a glass, knocking red wine over the white tablecloth. Several guests stood. A restaurant manager opened the door, but Claire told him they needed another minute. Maya's composure collapsed completely. She accused Adrian of using her for money and childcare. She accused me of spying. She accused Samuel of staging a public humiliation. Then she turned toward the people at the table and shouted that they were hypocrites for judging a relationship they had celebrated 10 minutes earlier. Linda answered quietly, We celebrated what you told us it was. Samuel handed Maya an envelope. You have been served with a petition for dissolution of marriage and temporary financial orders. Read the instructions carefully. Direct future legal communication to counsel. Maya looked at my name on the papers, then back at me. You filed without even speaking to me. You lived with another man for 4 years without speaking to me. I could have explained. You had 1,400 mornings to explain. Her shoulders sagged. For the first time that evening, she seemed to understand that no new version of the story was coming. Adrian had turned against her. His family knew. I knew. The court would know. The two lives she had carefully kept apart were now exchanging documents across the same table. Maya picked up the divorce papers and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she looked at Adrian and said, Sophie will hate you for taking me away. Adrian's face tightened, but he answered, Sophie will learn that adults tell the truth when they make mistakes. You don't get to use her love as leverage anymore. Maya left. Nobody followed her. I remained only long enough to answer several factual questions and confirm that I would not release private photographs. Adrian's parents apologized to me, though I told them they hadn't known. Claire asked why I had come instead of allowing the attorneys to handle everything. Because Maya used separation to keep the lies alive, I said. I needed her to see that the separation was over. Adrian stood alone beside the windows. The ruined tablecloth had turned pink where staff blotted the wine. I meant what I said, he told me. About never loving her? Yes. That doesn't make you innocent. I know. You knew I existed during the first year. I know that too. He offered his hand. I looked at it but didn't take it. We had cooperated because the truth required it. We were not friends, and I wasn't going to manufacture brotherhood from sharing the same liar. Protect your daughter, I said. Then I left. The divorce unfolded over the next 7 months. Maya initially contested nearly everything. She claimed the Lake Eola apartment had been a business property, despite photographs showing her celebrating holidays there and messages discussing it as our home. She alleged that Adrian had pressured her into the relationship, but 4 years of affectionate messages contradicted her. She insisted the false divorce judgment was merely a visual draft created to help Adrian understand what the eventual document would look like. The court did not find that explanation persuasive. The forensic accountant traced $52,700 in marital funds and questionable business expenses into Maya's second household. Some purchases were legitimate design costs, but many were not. She had classified Sophie's bedroom furniture, family meals, personal travel, and even part of the rehearsal dinner deposit as client-related expenses. The tax issues were referred to the appropriate authorities, and her former employer began reviewing whether she had used client accounts to obtain trade discounts for personal purchases. She had. Maya's design firm terminated her before the divorce was final. 3 clients demanded reimbursements. The State Professional Association did not revoke a license. Interior designers in her role did not require the kind of license people imagined, but it removed her from a featured member directory after complaints concerning deceptive billing. She tried opening an independent studio under her maiden name. Contractors who had worked on the Bellwether project discovered that no such project existed. One posted a warning in a private Central Florida design group after Maya approached him for credit. Within weeks, suppliers began requiring payment up front. Her reputation did not collapse because I launched a public campaign. It collapsed because her career depended on trust, documentation, and referrals, the same 3 things she had spent 4 years treating as props. Adrian ended the Lake Eola lease and moved into a smaller apartment closer to the hospital. Rachel obtained a temporary adjustment to their custody arrangement after learning how deeply Sophie had been involved in the false family narrative. Adrian remained in his daughter's life, but he entered counseling and was required to keep Maya away from her. Maya tried contacting Sophie through gifts, school letters, and a tablet account Adrian had forgotten existed. Rachel's attorney put a stop to it. Sophie struggled for months. That consequence weighed on me more heavily than anything Maya lost professionally. Children do not understand why adults vanish after promising permanence. They only understand that someone was there, and then wasn't. I never met Sophie, but I sometimes thought about the plastic alligator cup in that first photograph and wished every adult involved had been better before she had to pay for our failures. Adrian and I spoke twice after the rehearsal dinner. The first conversation concerned financial records. The second happened after Maya sent both of us an identical email titled, "My Truth." She wrote that she had loved us differently, and had been trapped by a society that demanded one person fulfill every emotional need. She described herself as a woman punished for loving beyond conventional boundaries. She mentioned neither the forged filing nor the hidden money. Adrian forwarded the email to his attorney without responding. I did the same. That was the last coordinated action we took. During settlement negotiations, Maya offered to waive any claim to my retirement account if I agreed to state publicly that we had been informally separated throughout her relationship with Adrian. Samuel asked whether I wanted to consider it. The financial value was significant. I declined. "She isn't buying a new timeline with money she may not receive anyway," I said. We eventually reached a settlement based on records rather than narratives. The house was sold. Maya's share of the equity was reduced to account for proven dissipation of marital funds and certain joint debts created without my informed consent. I kept my retirement account, my personal vehicle, and the portion of our savings that remained traceable to my earnings. Maya retained her business equipment and accepted responsibility for disputed charges tied to her studio and the second apartment. Nobody left with everything. I left with my name, enough money to rebuild, and no obligation to continue financing a fantasy that had excluded me. Maya left with legal bills, tax problems, damaged professional relationships, and no home in either of the lives she had tried to preserve. Her parents allowed her to stay in their Kissimmee guest room temporarily, but that arrangement ended after she blamed them for refusing to contact me on her behalf. She moved into a small rental near Ocoee and took contract work creating furniture layouts for an online retailer. When coworkers learned why her previous studio had closed, she claimed I had fabricated the records out of jealousy. One of them happened to know Adrian's sister. The contract was not renewed. She later dated a real estate photographer, but he ended the relationship after finding the counterfeit divorce case discussed in publicly accessible court documents. Maya contacted me through Samuel and accused me of ensuring nobody would ever trust her again. I had not spoken to the man. Her own paper trail reached him before I ever could. I want you to understand something I learned slowly. A ruined reputation is not always the result of gossip. Sometimes it is simply the accumulated cost of requiring every new person to believe an explanation that the evidence cannot support. Maya could have rebuilt if she had said, "I deceived 2 households, involved a child, misused money, and I am trying to change." Instead, every fresh start required a fresh lie about why the previous one ended. She wasn't being chased only by what she had done. She was being chased by her refusal to name it honestly. My ending was quieter. I did not fall in love with Adrian's sister, Maya's friend, or some understanding stranger who appeared at exactly the right moment. For a while, I didn't want romance at all. The discovery had damaged my ability to treat ordinary uncertainty as harmless. If someone changed dinner plans, I wondered which apartment they were really visiting. If a person paused before answering, I studied the pause. I knew that wasn't sustainable, so I found a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma. He never told me to learn to trust again, as though trust were a switch. He taught me to trust my ability to respond when something proved untrue. That distinction changed everything. I moved into a 2-bedroom townhouse near Audubon Park and kept Baxter with me. I turned the second bedroom into a proper home office, then painted it a dark blue Maya would have rejected as too heavy. I was promoted to lead adjuster after handling a complicated hurricane fraud investigation, and I began training younger employees on evidence preservation and interview techniques. My manager once joked that nobody could maintain a neutral expression as long as I could. He had no idea where I learned it. On weekends, I started volunteering with a Central Florida organization that helped people organize financial records during divorces and domestic transitions. I never offered legal advice. I helped them build lists, accounts, policies, debts, documents, dates. It was practical work, almost boring, and that was precisely why it mattered. Panic makes life feel shapeless. A list gives the first edge back. A year after the divorce, I saw Maya in the produce section of a grocery store near Colonial Drive. She looked older, though only 14 months had passed. She wore a polo shirt bearing the logo of a home staging warehouse and held a handheld inventory scanner. For a second, the old instinct returned, the urge to understand which version of her I was seeing. Then I realized there was no version left for me to investigate. She noticed me, looked at Baxter's food in my cart, and said, "How is he?" "Healthy. I miss him." "I know." She waited for more. When it didn't come, she asked, "Are you happy?" I considered the question. "I'm honest about my life," I said. "That's close enough for now." She looked down at the scanner. "Adrian was cruel to say he never loved me. He was cruel long before he said it. Did you enjoy hearing it?" "No." That answer seemed to surprise her. "Then why did you help him?" "Because the truth was the only thing neither of you had tried." Maya blinked back tears and said, "I really did love you, David." "I know. But you loved having me more than you respected me." I walked away without anger, victory, or the secret hope that she would call my name. Baxter was waiting at home. My work mattered. The townhouse was peaceful. My future was not dramatic, but it belonged entirely to me. Looking back, these are the 5 lessons I carried out of those 4 stolen years. Number 1. A weak explanation does not become stronger because you love the person giving it. The Lake Eola key contradicted Maya's story, and asking one simple question of Tessa opened the truth. Number 2. Genuine feelings do not excuse organized deception. Maya may have loved both Adrian and me in her own way, but love without respect became permission to use 2 households and 1 child. Number 3. When someone maintains separate stories, bring the evidence into one room. Maya's power disappeared the moment Adrian, his family, the attorneys, and I could compare what she had told each of us. Number 4. Cooperation with another betrayed or involved person does not require friendship or forgiveness. Adrian helped expose the truth, but his participation in the first year still mattered, and I did not erase it because our interests temporarily aligned. Number 5. The best protection after betrayal is not learning to predict every lie. It is knowing you will trust yourself enough to act when reality and someone's words stop matching. Now tell me what you would have done after learning Maya was 12 days away from a second wedding. Comment 1 if you would have confronted her privately. Comment 2 if you think bringing both lives together at the rehearsal dinner was justified, or comment 3 if Adrian's confession that he never loved her was needlessly cruel. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there, because I'm always amazed by how many different places these stories reach. If this story held your attention, leave a like and subscribe for more stories about betrayal, consequences, and rebuilding a life that no longer depends on somebody else's version of the truth. This is a fictional story inspired by real emotional patterns, fully rewritten in Orlando to create original content. Any resemblance to real people or events is entirely coincidental.